1965, 1-3. My Dearest Suzie. Well, I am back home again, and already in the groove. We got back last night at 6 o'clock, and I was up at 5 this morning flying. I got 6.5 hours today. But at least the time flies when I work hard. I think that you will hear from me more now, too. It is a lot easier to sit down in my own room and write at my desk. Up in Da Nang, we practically lived out of a suitcase. When we got in last night, Charlie's jacket was laying on my bed. The nuns really outdid themselves on that job. They used the one that you sent for a model and fired him up with W3 bars and wings and even a cigarette pocket on the sleeves, just like ours. These pictures I'm sending you were made last night with a Polaroid camera. Notice the one picture of him on the bar? He pee-peed all over the bar before we could get him to pose for a picture. The cutest thing of all, though, was the laundry bag they made for him. Each of us have our own laundry bag with our name embroidered on them and our laundry marks. My laundry mark is 48/0. Charlie's laundry bag is real small, and his mark is 48/00. Isn't that cute? I'm real happy that Mickey is stopping by to see you. I hope he enjoys his stay. Your check is real small this time, I'm afraid, since I had to pay back some rations, but maybe this will help some. I miss you all very much, and I will write more tomorrow. All my love, Bill. I feel that today is perhaps the best day to introduce you, formally, to Charlie, Poppy's monkey. He was a macaque, which is, interestingly enough, still a common, though mostly illegal pet in Vietnam and the rest of the region. Though I don't particularly have the full story of how Poppy acquired Charlie, I was first introduced to him when, like most young boys, I asked my parents if I could have a monkey. They told me to ask Poppy what monkeys were like, since he kept one as a pet in Vietnam. But ultimately the answer was always going to be no. From that moment on, it became a well-known fact that I told almost all of my friends that my Poppy had a monkey when he was a soldier in Vietnam. By the way Poppy wrote about him in his letters and talked about him, as well as all the photos he took of him, you could tell he really cared for the little guy. The jacket that Poppy refers to is an almost one-for-one recreation of one of his dress shirts. The nuns hand-stitched a small shirt for Charlie, complete with snap buttons to keep it securely to his body. On the nameplate, it says Charlie, and, like Poppy describes, it even has his rank and insignia as well as a tiny cigarette pocket. Obviously, Charlie is named ironically after the Charlie in the trees. At least he had a sense of humor about these things. When I was an undergrad in college, I took a class which really stuck with me. It was a seminar of 13 students and the one professor called War in Literature and Film. It was a course where every week we read a different novel about Americans in war, starting with the Civil War and the short story Chickamauga by Ambrose Bierce, and ending with Phil Clay's Redeployment. In that course, we read 2 books about Vietnam and also watched Apocalypse Now. It inspired me to ask more thoughtful questions about Poppy's time in the service. As a result of asking these questions, Meemaw surprised me and sent me a package in a bubble mailer. It was Charlie's shirt. This surprise excited me so much that I immediately emailed my professor and asked if I could bring in my grandpa's monkey shirt from Vietnam. He said I could and was incredibly surprised when I brought in a shirt that fit a monkey with warrant officer bars and a nameplate. He thought it was just slang for some jacket Poppy used to wear. The class was enamored with the artifact, and we spent most of our day talking about Poppy and things like Charlie's shirt and how they related to the books we were reading. At that point, I knew so little that when we read in Michael Hare's Dispatches a passage about a guy at the Battle of Huey with a monkey, almost everyone, my professor included, was convinced that it was Charlie. It wasn't, though, but I wanted to believe it was. After college, I framed the shirt in a shadow box. I hung it on a tiny hanger and printed out 2 photos of Charlie. I kept it in my room in my parents' house until I moved out for good when I offered it to my dad. He took the VC flag and a few other things for his office at home, and I thought it fit. What happened to Charlie after Poppy left Vietnam? Well, somewhat similar to the little orphan girl, I know Poppy worked tirelessly to bring Charlie back to Florida, but failed completely. The story they told us as kids to freak us out is that he was probably eaten by the Vietnamese people. This is probably just a remnant of a story that soldiers would tell their loved ones to mess with them. I'm sure my dad or Meemaw will call me after they hear this and correct me, but I believe he was actually given away to another guy in the company. You'll know if I was right if I correct this record later. You'll see as these letters go on that he was mischievous and often got himself, and by extension Popi, in some trouble. One last fact. He was also parachute trained. Maybe we'll talk more about that later. Maybe there's even a picture of it. Also, perhaps this should be the subject of a different podcast entirely, but my other grandfather, my mom's dad, who served in Vietnam before Popi as a mechanic in the Air Force, also had a pet monkey. I guess it was a common thing to do, but I thought that would be funny to mention. The photo I chose for today is the one Popi describes in his letter. It features Charlie, in his shirt, sitting on the bar of the officers' club. I assume it was taken just after he pee-peed everywhere. There's another one that he also sent that featured him holding Charlie with a big smile. I'm glad that his exotic pet could bring him moments of joy. I'll find a place to share that photo later on. I'm Alex Lowy, and I hope you have enjoyed listening to this episode of Dearest Suzie, and receiving messages from the past that my Popi wrote exactly 60 years ago. I sincerely appreciate your time and interest. Please consider following the podcast on your preferred platform, and if you're enjoying it, I kindly ask that you take the time to rate the show and leave a review. Also, please follow the project on YouTube, X, and Instagram. All likes, comments, shares, and reviews will help grow the reach of this story. The links for these things should be in the description of this episode. Please feel free to email me at dearestsuziepodcast@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to say. I'd love to chat or to hear about your stories as well. Thank you for listening, and God bless.